Here's another unscripted retrospective of another favorite show from my childhood. And this is also another birthday gift for my dear younger brother, Eno, who celebrated it 3 days ago. And this time I'm taking a look at Samurai Jack, an all-time Cartoon Network classic that is extremely acclaimed for its amazing use of artistic direction, atmosphere, overall visual beauty, and its stunning combination of style and substance, especially when it is one fabulous homage to the likes of Akira Kurosawa and a great deal of Japanese visionaries, especially not just Kurosawa-san, but also Hayao Miyazaki and Isao Takahata, and an overall masterpiece that has solidified itself as one of the all-time greatest shows to air on Cartoon Network. I first caught Samurai Jack when I was a 9-year-old third grader between 2001 to 2002. And it was a show that made me thoroughly engaged with the atmosphere building, the overall tension, the storylines, and the epic odyssey that Samurai Jack found himself in terms of trying to get back to the past after being spirited away by Aku to end up in a dystopian future. The basic premise of Samurai Jack goes like this. We have a young man who is a samurai who is the son of the emperor and the empress of Japan, and he realizes that Aku had been resurrected from his eternal slumber. One day, just as he was about to vanquish Aku to protect his father and all the citizens that were enslaved by Aku and his minions, Aku ends up playing a dirty trick on the samurai, thus opening up a portal and making him end up in a dystopian future. There are some ruffians who end up making fun of him and also giving him the name Jack, thus having himself be known as Samurai Jack. Thus begins Samurai Jack's epic odyssey of trying to get back to the past, but also encountering a lot of Aku's minions, monsters, demons, and a whole slew of potential allies, enemies, anti-heroes, all the works. But it's all wonderful, exciting, epic majesty rolled up into one amazing package. And that was what Samurai Jack was from its first 4 seasons, and then being revived for its 5th season in 2017. And throughout 2001 to 2004, it was definitely a great ride that was filled with epic tension, excitement, thrills, and all the chills that I and my younger siblings ended up acquiring every time Samurai Jack was on screen trying to fight all these monsters with his mystical sword, or even encountering gods not only from Japanese mythology, but also from Greek mythology, Norse mythology, African mythology. It really feels like an exciting epic rolled up into one amazing package. I mean, you have a warrior that Samurai Jack was fighting against who was cursed to live in a volcano and was promised to be the most powerful, but he ends up being cursed until Samurai Jack defeats him in grace, and it's that the warrior wanted to be free from the curse and therefore is delivered up to Valhalla by the Valkyries. You have another episode in which Samurai Jack encounters 3 blind archers. And call me a sucker for atmosphere, but I definitely love the overall winter atmosphere and the wintry scenario that made Jack and the 3 blind archers thoroughly amazing and an overall wonderful masterpiece. And the fact that Samurai Jack basically had to use his sense of hearing to overcome the 3 blind archers and beat them at their own game and free them of their curse, only to find out that these were imposing men who wanted to be powerful warriors through a wishing well, only to find out that it was a cursed well. That is just amazing storytelling and atmosphere build-up rolled up into one thoroughly amazing, brilliant, and phenomenal package. Or what about the episode involving Mad Jack, in which, after being hunted down by several bounty hunters, Samurai Jack could no longer take it, and even after his sandal ended up being loose, he throws it at the wanted poster, and then comes his bad side, known as Mad Jack, to try to vanquish him, only to realize that it's not through force that Samurai Jack has to overcome his bad side or his evil demonic side, but it is through calm serenity and through meditation that he is able to vanquish him. There are a lot of amazing stories from Samurai Jack that has made it the all-time classic and the all-time brilliant masterpiece that it has always been. I remember it also being pretty miffed that it was initially prematurely canceled after season 4, and we as the fans wanted and waited and were so willing to have another season that wrapped everything together. And come 2017, there was season 5 that dealt with new threats in forms of the Daughters of Aku, led by the High Priestess, and an unwilling ally in one of the daughters, Ashi. And on top of that, everything started to roll together in such an amazing package. And the ending was actually pretty satisfying, although I still do question why on earth the last season of Samurai Jack had to be set 50 years into the future, when all of that plot elements just ended up being kind of redone, back to kind of like the status quo when Jack receives his sword back and then he ends up being restored to his former self. I still do question why it has to take 50 years, and not to mention the eventual budding relationship occurring between Jack and Ashi. I know that if this were not for the 50-year time skip and all of that jazz, it would have been more palpable to have had Jack and Ashi as a couple, but I could forgive all that because I definitely did enjoy the growth occurring between Samurai Jack and Ashi as a potential couple. I know that a lot more could have been done with them. I know that the development that they should have had together could have been a lot more, but I'm kind of happy in terms of Ashi's presence. Someone who used to be so brainwashed by Aku's malignance, and then the high priestess constantly indoctrinating her daughters to form this cult and therefore have that one mission to destroy and annihilate Samurai Jack is thoroughly creepy and scary, and it definitely left my blood to be thoroughly chilled. And to see Ashi's initial view of the world be challenged is absolutely breathtaking. The fact that Samurai Jack does his very best to show her the truth, even also changing her for the better, and also Ashi realizing that she can change her destiny. I have to salute the writers for giving her that storyline and for making her just as strong of a character as she is. Granted, the final season of Samurai Jack did go through a darker, edgier tone. I mean, it's also the first time we get to see Jack kill certain people of flesh and blood who are actually Ashi's sisters. And we also have some moments in which some mature themes are also added in there. But Samurai Jack has always been a maturely handled show. It's just that with the 5th season, a bit of the envelope was pushed, but it was still an amazing package. And like I said, Samurai Jack is a maturely handled show because it knew how to take its audience seriously. It dealt with death. It dealt with trauma. It dealt with destruction. It dealt with a lot of deep and heavy topics while still being a thoroughly intriguing action thriller animated show that can push the envelope from time to time, but did so with tact, respect, and a whole lot of brilliance. Samurai Jack's legacy as one of Cartoon Network's all-time greatest shows, let alone magnum opuses, and overall amazingly gold standard pieces of work, is well deserved. It really took its audiences seriously. Genndy Tartakovsky definitely knew how to steer the ship that he built. And even when Samurai Jack was initially prematurely canceled, the fans never gave up on the show. They wanted to see Jack have his conclusion, let alone closure. And even looking back at the final scene where, spoiler alert, Jack ends up marrying Ashi, but she ends up disappearing, and then Jack is all alone again. It is bittersweet, but it's nice to know that Jack ended up in his time. He's finally destroyed Aku with the help of his various allies that he's made. And what would have been more satisfying is it would have been cool to have had the gods in Ra, Odin, and Anansi resurrect Ashi to be free from Aku's curse and therefore be reunited with Jack and live the happy life that they ought to live. That would have been absolutely amazing and a much greater ending. But still, I still love Samurai Jack for what it was able to accomplish as an animated show. I still love it in terms of its magnificent combination of style and substance. And I love it for its deep and brilliant characters. and it's also reflected in the animation. It feels like I'm watching paintings come to life, whether it's in those muted color palettes or garish colors or the more vibrant ones, or even colors that can be very muted or show a lot of restraint. There's something amazing about the style of Samurai Jack that makes me want to watch it over and over again. And the art direction is superb. There is not one corner that was being cut. In fact, all of the artwork from Samurai Jack is thoroughly breathtaking. I felt like I was on a trip just watching all of this happen. And therefore, it was an exciting visual trip that I dare not take for granted anytime soon. Not to mention the characters. And yes, talking about the characters is basically talking about Samurai Jack and Aku, especially when they represent the heroism good of Samurai Jack and the evil machinations of Aku. Yes, Samurai Jack is known for his stoicism and his formidability, but beneath that, you have a compassionate man, a man who is also appreciative, caring, understanding, and who also has this honor to him on and off the battlefield. And I know I'm going to sound corny, but to me, and to a lot of young boys watching Samurai Jack, I could easily consider him to be a great role model. That is just what true masculinity is, especially engendered by Samurai Jack. Yes, he is a great fighter. Yes, he's learned different fighting styles from not only his signature swordsmanship with his katana, but throughout his childhood, he learned how to fight with a staff in Africa. He learned how to wrestle in ancient Greece. He learned how to use a zanbato in China, especially when dealing with Shaolin Kung Fu. He learned how to shoot a bow and arrow, courtesy of the help of Robin Hood in merry old England. He was pretty much that Swiss army knife who definitely could do it all. But underneath that badassery that defines Samurai Jack is someone who is so steeped in honor, so steeped in compassion, so steeped in the care and well-being of other people, and that altruism that makes him thoroughly brilliant and that makes him thoroughly shine all the way through, especially when he meets allies. Yes, at times his relationship, let alone comradeship and friendship with the Scotsman, started out as rocky, but once they put their skills together, they proved themselves to be a formidable force. And speaking of the Scotsman, he is an ally who definitely steals the show, all thanks to his larger-than-life personality, his boisterousness, and in terms of a literary sense, he serves as Jack's foil. While Jack is stoic, silent, and altruistic, the Scotsman is bombastic, boisterous, and has this larger-than-life personality that makes him all the more ebullient in a roguish manner, and does so with panache and a whole lot of awesomeness to boot. Even his wife is just as boisterous and just as fun. Even one-time characters such as the Samurai also serves to prove that just because you have all of this glitz and outer macho nature, let alone outer machismo, he still has a hell lot to learn about humility. And he definitely also had that much to learn, even when his disguise ended up being totally destroyed. But it's through that destruction of that outer shell that he has finally learned to embrace humility, and even looks up to Samurai Jack as a teacher or even a sensei. And there's also another one-time character that left me with a lot of fascination, and that is the azure-skinned gatekeeper, who serves as one of the ultimate rivals of Samurai Jack, but also considers him to be a worthy opponent. His appearance is absolutely formidable, and his presence in Samurai Jack is absolutely welcome. But I dare not forget about Aku, who is the shogun of sorrow and the cause of all of these atrocities to happen in the show. Aku is such a magnificent bastard that I've always admired. His bombastic personality, his hamminess, and the fact that his design is also inspired by No and Kabuki theater, especially when he presents himself as an evil yokai and an overall demonic entity that you dare not mess with, especially with his wide fangs and his exaggerated facial features that call to mind the demon mask of No theater. You definitely have someone like Aku, who is thoroughly amazing and thoroughly magnificent in his villainy, and he is totally unapologetic about it. Even his minions like the Mongo prove to be just as intimidating, and Mad Jack just as amazing. And without going too much into detail about the characters, all of them are amazing. And I also have to give it to the voice actors for doing just as amazingly with their characters. Phil Lamar was thoroughly nuanced as Samurai Jack, and he did such an amazing job in terms of bringing out that subtlety and heroism rolled up into one thoroughly brilliant package. And he also combines him with that altruism that makes Samurai Jack a worthy role model, especially to the young boys watching. John DiMaggio was bombastically brilliant as the Scotsman, and I loved listening to everything he had to accomplish as this boisterous Scotsman warrior. And I salute him for everything he had to accomplish. Kevin Michael Richardson demonstrated a great deal of variety as the gatekeeper and even the Mongol. I was surprised to know that Kevin Michael Richardson pitched his voice up so high to voice the Mongol. I almost thought that the Mongol was voiced by D. Bradley Baker or Tom Kenny. But the fact that he was voiced by Kevin Michael Richardson was thoroughly surprising, because I mainly knew and associate Kevin Michael Richardson for a lot of these booming, intimidating, and imposing basso type of roles. You know, the ones that have also made the likes of Keith David and Clancy Brown household names in the voice acting industry, and especially Ron Perlman. Yeah, the Mongol was actually voiced by Kevin Michael Richardson, which thoroughly surprised me. But suffice it to say, he was also a great contributor as to what made Samurai Jack the absolute epic that it was. Then you also have the likes of Jennifer Hale and Tara Strong and Katsushi also providing their vocal work to some select characters. David Alan Grier voicing the samurai with all of his panache and ebullience and that macho nature that makes him thoroughly entertaining. And I dare not forget about the late, great Mako Iwamatsu, who voiced Aku in the first 4 seasons of Samurai Jack, but unfortunately after his tragic death in 2006, he was replaced by Greg Baldwin, who definitely lived up to the legacy that Mako Iwamatsu left. So both of them were just as brilliant as Aku, and they both gave their own spins on this iconic villain. I still have to give it to Mako Iwamatsu for his overall menace and the acidic quality that made Aku thoroughly brilliant, and for Greg Baldwin for keeping up with that said acidity and also living up to what made Mako Iwamatsu's portrayal of Aku thoroughly brilliant. Samurai Jack is without a doubt a masterpiece, another phenomenal masterpiece that definitely deserves a lot of love, a lot of acclaim, and a whole lot of praise. Yes, it might have taken from 2004 to 2017 to finally have the ending that we fans deserve and wanted to witness. But the fact remains that Samurai Jack's tight writing, brilliant characters, amazing combination of style and substance can never ever be rivaled. If you are an Akira Kurosawa fan, or if you're a fan of Hayao Miyazaki, or Isao Takahata, or Mamoru Oshii, or any of the great Japanese visionaries that you enjoy, you owe it to yourselves to catch Samurai Jack in all of its majesty, in all of its epic brilliance, and in all of its awesomeness. This is without a doubt Genndy Tartakovsky at his finest, and he would definitely prove himself to be a great creator after Samurai Jack to also create Primal, which is just as amazing and just as epic as Samurai Jack is. Therefore, Samurai Jack deserves a million salutes and a million praises that it thoroughly deserves. And for those of you who caught Samurai Jack, whether you caught it back then when you were a kid in 2001 or rewatching it to this day as an adult, what'd you think of it? Was there a moment that you thoroughly loved from Samurai Jack? Did you really love how Samurai Jack used its sense of style and substance to make it come alive? Was there something that made Samurai Jack special for you? Or did you feel like its praise was just too much for you? Please let me know in the comments below. Well, that's it for my unscripted retrospective of Samurai Jack, a show that made Cartoon Network absolutely brilliant and vice versa. And until then, have a blessed Easter season, everybody.